Hi, I'm Holly, I'm a writer, and I thought I would do a quick querying update because as small as this video is probably going to be, it is a process that I said I would document, and my book that I'm quite proud of, Formation Lap, it's a Formula One book, and I sent off my first queries on, I think, the 28th of January, give or take. And my process that I have gone with, which I'll explain, I guess, first, is that I plan on doing 2 sort of months in a batch, right? Like a 2-month period where I send off 10 queries and then I just wait and see what happens. And then after the 2 months, I send off another batch. Now, the reason why I did that is because the querying process is a lot of waiting, a lot of not getting responses or getting rejections, or if you get a request, you then have to wait for them to read it and decide whether or not they want to work with you perhaps from that, or even, if they don't give you feedback from that, you will just, again, you'll have no response from the further request. Basically, they say whether they want to read the full manuscript or not, because you usually only send the first 3 chapters or 10,000 words or whatever. So it is the same process over and over again. Even if you get a request, it's either you get a response or you don't, and then you have to move on from it. And it means that there's no clarification on where you stand. You don't really know, is it the query letter? Is it the work itself? Is it that these agents just aren't a good fit for it? It's really difficult. And I think especially with Formula One books, the only books that I saw when I was doing my research, and it is quite difficult to find because of the way that the market is, the popular books are the ones that you're going to find. You have to do a lot of digging to find less popular ones sometimes. But basically, I could not see any that weren't romance. And I think that if I had written a romance, it would be a lot easier for me to sell, because even if you don't know that much about Formula One, it's a romance. And so that's the main focus. However, in mine, the main focus is Formula One. And so if someone has no interest in Formula One and they don't think that they could promote a book to an editor at a publishing house about Formula One, then they aren't going to accept it, regardless of whether or not they enjoyed reading it. Because it's about them as professionals more than it's about them as people, and whether or not they would read your book and enjoy it is different from whether they think that they could work with you as a client. So it is quite complicated, and I think that the whole situation is very one-sided. You put in a lot of effort and you get very little back. So 2 months gives me the time to send off queries and not feel like I'm doing nothing, but it also gets me enough time to get back some responses. Now, I actually sent off 11 in my first batch and then 10 in my second, so I've sent off 21 altogether. It's been a month and a half, basically. No, 2 months and a half. That's right. 2 months and a half since I sent off my first batch, and I think it was good. It was fine. The first batch that I did, I used, it was one query letter that I had, and it was my first query. I say my first query letter. It was the first query letter that I queried with. It was not a first draft, but I got no responses really from that one. There are still, the waiting times on some of those ones are 3+ months, right? A fair few of them were it's quite a while before you're going to hear from us if we are going to respond. So some of those are still open. However, 2 of them were closed no response, which means that they did not give me anything. The time elapsed where it was a rejection. And then I got 1 form rejection. For my second batch, and I'm taking this as a positive, I got more rejections. Actual form responses saying, sorry, it's not for me. And I changed my query letter for this second batch, and I had, basically I'm a part of this community, it's a writers collective, it's called Novelbound. There was an event in Novelbound because it is a really helpful community where you can connect with other writers, but also industry professionals do Q&A type things, and you know, you get to sort of talk to these professionals in a way that you wouldn't usually get the opportunity to. And so I did a query letter critique, which was free outside of my subscription to the member benefits stuff. And it was really helpful. And so I changed my query letter quite a lot. And the thing that was really interesting was that I was told to add more detail. And my query letter was as short as it is recommended that you have it, like about 350 words. And since I have increased the word count, I have had a higher response. And I don't know if that is a good thing or not, but I feel like it probably is, because having people that are supposed to take either a really long time to respond, or people who, you know, basically I had someone who it literally was like less than 20% response rate and they responded to me, and I feel like that's kind of amazing, right? Like, even if it's a rejection, and I had 5 rejections so far from that batch, so that's half of that batch. And I feel like that is a good thing, because it's an actual response. It means that these people are reading it and they're deciding to take the time to respond, even if that's not necessarily their policy. So I'm pretty happy with that. And I think that it really is, it's weird, because I thought I would be devastated. You know, I thought I would, oh my god, my book is being rejected, it must be terrible. But I actually feel like when I see a rejection, I'm like, you know what? I'm putting myself out there and I'm getting a response. People are reading what I'm putting out, and they're, even if it's just a form response and it's just what they say to everybody, they are saying that they enjoyed it, but that it's not for them, that it doesn't fit with their list or whatever. And I think that is so much more reassuring than just a rejection when nothing comes through. And so I feel like this new query letter, I'm gonna go forward with it, and I'm editing the book as well, because I did plan on doing this before I queried. I finished the draft in January, which was obviously why I queried then. I wanted to give it a few months before I went back, and it went in April, so it's been 2 full months of me not touching it, and I've now started to edit it, and I've got some people who are going to give me feedback on it. And I think that if it like is something that I can keep improving, then, you know, if the query letter is so, like, to me, the query letter is showing itself to be successful now in the second draft more than it was in the first, which it might not be, because I only did 1 round and then I changed it. So it could just be that that first round was, you know, not a very response heavy group in the first place. But if it was the query letter that was leading to a low response rate and I fixed that, the next step is obviously the pages. So I think that I'm trying to be productive, and I'm also trying not to think about it too much. And I'm working on other stuff. I'm allowing myself to relax a little bit and play more games, read more books. And it's going well. I mean, the thing is, there's really not much that I can say other than that I've had some rejections, and I've had some just empty responses, and that there are some still out. And I think that that is it for this first update, really. But yeah, it's going well, and I'm surprised and pleased by the way that I have been dealing with it so far. I think it was something I was very afraid of, that I would perhaps break down a little bit and feel really rejected, and that it would be a super negative experience. Whereas even though technically it's been a negative experience, like, it's not been good, obviously. I would have loved for people to be like, we want that book right now, please give me that book. But I think that you have to take the positives from something, and I think that when you can't control how you feel about something and you can't make it better because you're not the one who is able to do anything about it, it is really nice that I'm not reacting as negatively as I had expected, because it's a perseverance test. You have to keep querying and querying and querying. And if a lot of people send out 100+ queries before they get an agent, if they get an agent, or if they take multiple books, I think that I am gonna have to keep pushing through even when it starts to get hard. And I think starting in a relatively positive mindset is probably a good thing for when that harder times comes around and I've got like 50 rejections and I'm feeling like my book is just terrible. So yeah, that is it, I think, for today's video. If you're in the querying trenches, I will say, like, you're not in this alone. It really is tough. And yeah, I think, you know, I'm gonna come back and try to keep positive in the future and let you know how it's going the further I get in. I did send out my queries before April started, so by it's June time, it'll have been another 2 months. So I think it'll probably be mid-June, or obviously if something happens, like if I get a full request and I might say like, oh, I got these rejections, blah blah blah, and I got a full request, and I might talk about that. But I'm gonna try and not update too much, because at first I was gonna update every month, but clearly not that much actually happens. So yeah, I am just gonna leave that there, and if you're querying, get in touch and we can support each other. And good luck. I feel like we all need it. Bye.